Welcome to Write with Harte. I'm Jenna Harte, a romance author and a romance ghostwriter. Over the last 2 years, I've written over 2 million swoon-worthy words, and I am here to share with you some of my tips and insights on how you can write swoon-worthy romance as well. Now today I want to share with you my tips on how I was able to double my writing output without spending any more time sitting at my computer or writing. So if you'd like to write more in less time, you're going to want to watch this video. Now, as I mentioned before, I am a ghostwriter, and over the last 2 years, I've actually had 2 clients, one of whom likes to go on a rapid release schedule, which means I am writing a 60 to 80,000 word book for her about every 3 weeks. And when I'm writing for both of them at the same time, as you can imagine, that is a lot of writing and a lot of typing. And after a year and a half of working like that, I began to notice in the summer of 2020 that the joints of my fingers were feeling stiff and sore. It's like what I imagine arthritis might feel like. Now, for a while, I couldn't figure out what it was until one day I sat down to work on my writing as I did every day, and I just couldn't do it. It was way too painful. Now, of course, I went to the doctor, but I had a sneaky suspicion that it was a repetitive injury. And as it turned out, I was right. I was having a repetitive strain injury in my fingers. And as you can imagine, being a writer, this is not a good thing. I knew I needed to make a change, and I needed to make it fast. And I also knew that that change was going to involve using dictation through voice recognition. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I knew about this method of writing for a long time. Many authors have recommended it to me, but I was always very resistant. But now, being forced to do it, I can tell you it has completely changed my life. My output of writing has increased while my time actually writing has decreased. Now, I know what you're thinking. Voice recognition is too slow, it's too awkward, it disrupts the flow of creativity. I know this because I was thinking the same things. But if you will stick with this video, what I'm going to cover today is common reasons people often resist voice recognition and why those reasons might not be true. I'm going to give you some reasons on why you might want to consider using dictation and voice recognition. Plus, I'm going to give you some tips on how you can make the transition as seamless as possible from typing to dictation. And finally, I'm going to give you my recommended tools and some resources on voice recognition. So again, to help you make the transition as easy as possible. So let's talk about some reasons that people might be resistant to even considering using dictation using voice recognition. Here are 5 reasons that I had been resistant to it. The first was that it is really weird to speak your book out loud. There have been a few times where I've been driving in the car and I've had great things come to me. All my best writing happens when I'm not at my computer. I'm in my car or I'm running or doing something else. And when I would take out my phone to record the dialogue or narrative or whatever I was thinking, it felt very weird to speak it, even if I was by myself. The second reason I was resistant to it was because I just didn't feel like I was having that creative flow. Because it was awkward to say it out loud, it didn't flow as smoothly as if I was typing it. The third reason is I felt like by speaking what I was thinking, that it would interrupt my flow of creativity. It just felt like things were wired differently to come from my brain and out through my fingers to the keyboard than coming from my brain to my mouth. It seemed like I had to cut off the flow of ideas in my head in order to speak them out loud, if that makes any sense. The fourth thing was you have to remember to put in all the punctuation marks and other items such as bold or italic. And finally, I felt like speaking my book would be much slower than typing. I'm a pretty fast typer. I was able to type maybe 1,500 to 1,800 words an hour when I was really in the groove. And it just seemed like speaking would take me a longer time. Partially because of that idea that I would have to say the words and then figure out a way to get back into that creative space where I'm thinking of all the things that I need to say and then stop to speak them again. But what I discovered, in fact, is that I was able to get over the awkwardness of saying my book out loud fairly quickly. The work has been just as good. The words are flowing. Speaking punctuation comes as naturally as clicking the period key when I'm typing. And in the end, it has turned out to save me time. Now, I'm not going to deny that there aren't issues with dictation and voice recognition. It's not perfect, and it does require an adjustment making the switch from typing to speaking your book. But here are some reasons why you might want to consider dictation and voice recognition. The biggest reason is that it is faster. When I initially was researching dictation and voice recognition, I came across a blog post over at Joanna Penn's thecreativepen.com where she'd done an interview with Scott Baker, who indicated that through dictation and voice recognition, writers could have an output of about 5,000 words an hour. I'm going to be honest with you, while I wasn't sold, that intrigued me because at my fastest, I was typing maybe 1,500 to 1,800 words per hour. And as a ghostwriter, where I have to have 3,500 to 5,000 words a day, sometimes more, the idea of having 5,000 words in an hour was extremely intriguing. My actual output is anywhere between 3,500 to 4,000 words per hour, but that is still double or more what I was doing before. The other thing I discovered was that I'm actually spending less time at my desk. Now, part of it is because I am getting more done in less time. But the other part of it is I actually don't just sit and dictate at my desk. I actually dictate into a voice recorder, which means I can do that anywhere. I can do it while I'm out on a walk. I can do it when I'm driving in my car. I can just lounge on my daybed and do the recording. Then the software actually transcribes the recording and all I have to do is revise. Now, I don't know if you're into health, but there is research that suggests sitting too much is just as bad as smoking. So this has allowed me to spend less time at my desk, where before I might be spending 3, 4, 5 hours writing. Now I'm actually at my desk usually for less than an hour because all I'm doing is revising what the dictation has transcribed. But even if you're going to dictate directly into your document, you can do that standing, you can do that pacing, as long as you have a good microphone. But even if you're sitting, again, you could be spending half as much time sitting at your desk using dictation than if you're typing. So the next thing I want to cover is some tips on how to make the switch from typing into dictation using speech recognition. Now, a lot of times you will see blog posts and articles, even books about how to train your dragon. And that refers to Dragon Naturally Speaking, which is probably the most popular speech recognition software that's out there. But I have found that in making the adjustment, it's less about training the software and more about training yourself. So here are some things that I would suggest that you learn to do in order to maximize the effectiveness of the software. The first thing is to speak slower than you think you need to. Now, sometimes when the words are flowing, you can speak really fast. It's sort of like when you're typing and you're in the flow, your fingers are flying across the keys, whereas when you're in a moment of lull or not sure what you're doing and you slow down. The same can happen when you're speaking your book. But by speaking too fast, the software is going to be challenged to know what it is you're saying. Now, that might seem counterintuitive because we're trying to spend less time at the desk writing. But in fact, you'd be surprised at how slow you can talk and still be ahead of pace if you were typing. Scott Baker has several books on voice recognition for authors, and in one of them, he actually has you read a passage out loud and tells you to read it over a minute and a half. Now, when I first read this passage, it took me 30 or 40 seconds, and it took me a couple tries to read it slow enough to reach the minute and a half mark. And once you do that, he then says that that minute and a half mark, that pace that you read that passage is 5,000 words an hour. Again, my head was blown. I was very excited because I was afraid that speaking that slow, that in fact, again, it would put me behind my regular typing pace. The second thing is to enunciate, which I will say is something that I struggle with. Now, the software is surprisingly accurate, especially when it comes to things like homophones. It can not only know what word you're saying, but it can understand the context that you're saying it in. So it uses the right it's, or there, or there. But it only can do that if you speak at a good pace and you enunciate. I have had times where I have transcribed what I dictated into my recorder, and all the words are real words, but I have no clue what the sentence is saying or means, because clearly the software didn't understand what I was saying or I meant. And I have to blame myself for that, not the software. Now, one of the issues that comes up in terms of using this method for fiction is that the software doesn't know words that you may have made up. There are swear words that it won't dictate, or if you have alternative spellings. For example, if you have a name, but you've spelled it different. For example, if you have John, it's going to use John, but maybe your goal is to have it spelled Jon. Now, there are different things that you can do to help the software help you with this. One is you have the option of teaching it new words or adding words so that it knows what you are saying. But I've heard that other authors have substituted words in place of those words. And then at the end, they just do a find and replace to put in the obscure word they want to use. So for example, if they are writing a sci-fi fantasy and they've made up a name of a planet that is kind of obscure, maybe they just use a name like Montana when they're dictating it. And then they do a find on the word Montana and replace Montana with the actual name of the planet that they want to use. The final thing, of course, is you do have to speak your punctuation. But what I discovered is that this quickly becomes as natural as using your pinky to press the period key when you're typing. And in fact, Scott Baker, again, in his book, talks about how when we're typing our manuscript, we don't think about pressing shift quote or pressing the comma or pressing the period. We automatically just do it. And the same happens when you're dictating. Eventually, it just becomes very automatic to speak the commands for punctuation. The most common ones I use, of course, are comma and period, open quote and end quote, and new line. If you're dictating directly into Word or whatever your word processing program is, there are many other commands you can use as well. For example, undo to erase what you just said. Nuance, which makes Dragon Naturally Speaking, has a cheat sheet for using their software, and I will have a link to that below if that's the software you decide to go with. I have found, because I do record into a digital recorder and I transcribe, I click the option to let the transcription software try and determine where some of the punctuation marks might go in case I missed them. And again, it doesn't always get it right, but that's okay, because all I'm doing at that point is just revising what is there, and it's no big deal to add a comma or take out a comma if it put it in the wrong place. So let me talk about a couple things that can go wonky. The most common software, again, is Dragon Naturally Speaking by Nuance. And doing my research, it's the one that most people said you should absolutely use. And I do love this software. But there are some issues that come up. I have read that sometimes on Macs, that it doesn't necessarily work as well. So if you're on a Mac, you might want to do more research. Now, I have found that dictating directly into Word, every now and then the screen might freeze, and sometimes I ended up just having to shut down. What I found was easier was actually dictating into Notepad and then copying and pasting that into Word. The other thing I found is that when the program is opened, sometimes it can slow other things down as it's trying to understand what you're saying, or it's looking for a microphone, because you can use the software for more than just dictating into a document. You can actually use it to help you with email. You can use it to command things to open and shut in your browser. So it can actually do quite a bit more. Now, the only things I use it for, obviously, are the writing of my books, but I also do use the transcribe feature to transcribe things like my video casts or my podcasts, because then I can use a transcript in the posts, or I can identify some quotes that I can use in social media. The only thing about the transcription that is wonky is that, unlike some other transcription services you can use like Rev or Scribby, that when it comes to transcribing things like my podcasts or my video casts, where I am not also at the same time indicating punctuation and line breaks and things like that, it all comes out as one long paragraph with no punctuation in it. But again, that is pretty easy to fix. So now let me talk about some of the tools and things that I would recommend if you would like to give this a try. When I first realized that this is what I was going to have to do in order to avoid the pain of typing, I initially tried to use the voice recognition that came with my PC. But that was even clunkier and went more wonky than having the actual software for a voice recognition. When I did my research again, what I found was that most people were recommending Dragon Naturally Speaking by Nuance. Now, you actually have several different options of the software. They do have a home edition that is just straight dictation into your document. They also have a professional version that includes the transcription software that I am talking about, and that is the Professional Individual. I will have links to both down below. Now, these are not cheap bits of software, and unfortunately, it looks like Nuance just increased the price. I will tell you that if you can finagle it to go for the professional version that includes the digital dictation, because for me, that is really what made this experience so awesome, that I can go for a walk and dictate my story. Then I just come in and I move the audio over to my computer, turn on Nuance, have it transcribe, and then all I have to do is go through and revise it. So in a walk, I might get 40 minutes of audio. I come over, it takes a few minutes to transcribe, and then maybe another 20 minutes of revision. And in an hour, I have nearly 4,000 words down. I really like the ability of not having to sit at my desk and dictate. But maybe that won't be a problem for you, and you can go with the version that just has the voice recognition dictation directly into your document, which is actually half as much as having the version that also has the audio recording or the digital recording. Now, I will say, if your goal is to make money with your writing, it's quite possible that this software could be tax deductible. But let me give you the disclaimer that I am not a tax expert, and so you would need to talk to one to be sure that that was the case in your situation. The second thing you need is a quality microphone. You should have a microphone that you can plug into your laptop or your computer if you're going to dictate directly into your document. Now, it doesn't need to be extremely expensive. I actually have a Yeti microphone that I hijacked from my son when he moved out and he left it behind. but I've also had headphones that have worked just fine as well, and they were maybe $40 or $50. So it's not overly expensive. Now, as I mentioned before, I actually do a digital recording and then have the software transcribe. Now, you can do that through your smartphone. Your phone probably has already on it the ability to record, or you can get a free app like Easy Voice Recorder. Now, I did download that app and I actually paid for the professional version, which was like $3.50 or something. It wasn't very expensive, just because it increased the quality and a little bit more. And then all you have to do is transfer the audio to your computer for the transcription. And you could do that by moving the audio into Dropbox or your Google Drive and then downloading it from there. Or you can plug your phone into your computer through USB and transfer it that way. Now, I don't actually record into my phone unless maybe I'm driving or something and I've forgotten my little recorder. And the reason is because my phone goes to sleep a lot and it's just sort of a pain to make sure to hold my phone while I'm walking, because I have a bigger phone because I don't see as well. So I went ahead and bought this Sony digital recorder, and I really like this because it can probably do a lot more than what I need it for. But what I need it for is just to be able to push the record button when I'm dictating my story, push the pause button when I'm walking uphill and I have to take a breath, or I need to think on a moment before what I want to say next, or I need to refer to my notes on my phone or the plot that I have there. The thing that I love about this particular version is that the USB port is actually in the device. So I come home and I just plug it into my computer. I transfer the recording over to my computer, and then I turn on the Dragon software to transcribe the recording. So that's why I like this one. It's all in one, record and plug in my machine. I will have a link to that in the comments below as well. Finally, you need a word processing software in order to do your dictation if you are going to sit at your desk and directly speak your story into your document. Now, I tried this with Word. It works with Word, but like I said, every now and then it would lag or it would freeze and it would get kind of wonky. And so I actually started dictating directly into Notepad and then would copy and paste from Notepad into my Word document. That is actually also something I read in Scott Baker's book as well. Now, if you're a Scrivener user, you can use this with Scrivener as well. Now, when you turn on the Dragon and in your Scrivener, a separate box actually opens for you to dictate into, and that works just as well. But if you want to go ahead and speak directly into the Scrivener word processing, you're going to have to go into the tools of the Dragon software. So if you go into the tools and options, what you need to click is use the dictation box for unsupported applications. And when you click that, then when you go into Scrivener and you have your cursor in the word processing box and you turn on the dictation software, you should be able to dictate directly into Scrivener. Now, I haven't actually done this, so I don't know if it ever gets kind of wonky or weird. Again, you could do the same thing where you actually dictate into Notepad and then paste it into Scrivener. So since the summer of 2020, this is how I have done all of my writing. I very rarely type my writing anymore, and usually if you see me typing, it's because I'm revising something that I have dictated into my recorder that has been transcribed. I will also say that it can take a little bit of getting used to, but like everything else, the more you do it, the better you get at speaking and enunciating and remembering to do the commands that you need to do, as well as the better the software learns to understand you. So I find that today my revisions are easier and don't take quite as long as when I initially started and me and the software were learning how to get along. And again, if you are resistant because you think it's weird or doesn't work, I'm here to tell you that I felt the same way. And today, it has just been a total and complete game changer for me because my output has now doubled and I'm really not spending any more time at my desk than I did before. I'm averaging 3,500 to 4,000 words an hour, which isn't Scott Baker's 5,000 words an hour, but it's still much better than I was doing before. And is constantly improving the better the software and I learn to work together. Now, if you have any questions about how to do this that I haven't covered in this video, please let me know in the comments below because I would be happy to help guide you through how to make this transition. I had no choice. I had to jump into the deep end with this, but had this not happened to me, I'd still be spending twice as much typing than I am now. So in some ways, it's been a blessing in disguise. And it's one reason why I recommend people at least check it out, try it out to see if maybe it wouldn't work for them. Now, before I let you go, I do want to remind you to please visit writewithharte.com. That's Harte in my name, Harte, where I have all these videos about writing romance posted. I also have a free Write a Romance in 30-Day challenge that you can sign up for. It's delivered by email. It gives you 5 days to put in your book foundation, and then you have 30 days of writing tips and inspiration to help you get your book written as quickly as possible. And of course, if you put voice recognition on top, you could get it written even faster than that. I also have a free romance writer planner, which helps you set your goals and also helps you set your schedule. It has tips for organizing your writing as well as for marketing your writing when your book gets to publication. And again, that is free over at writewithharte.com as well. I've also set up the site to work as a community, so you can come there and participate in groups. We have one on writing accountability. So if you want support and encouragement for your writing, you're definitely going to want to join that one. And as the community grows, we'll have more groups to help you and support you in your romance writing, or maybe you'll start your own group. You can do that as well. All you have to do is visit writewithharte.com and join. It's all free. So please stop by and say hi. That's it for this week's Write with Harte. I do hope that you found this episode inspiring, intriguing. Maybe you'll try out voice recognition. But until next time, this is Jenna Harte wishing you peace, love, and happily ever after.